Never in my life could I have imagined a Happy Meal being a source of terror. That was until one Halloween night, my friends and I partook in a random late-night McDonald's run after an evening of partying. It was late on Saturday, and the McDonald's nearby was mostly empty.
4 Happy Meals, please,
James said as we approached the counter, grinning like we were kids, ordering forbidden candy. The rest of us were kind of embarrassed, but thought it was hysterical at the same time. The odd-looking cashier hesitated for a moment, glanced at the 4 of us, who were in our late teens, and then smiled while punching in the order on the register.
Happy Meals? Really?
Melissa giggled, nudging me with her elbow.
Why not? We're reliving the glory days,
I responded. We sat down at a table, and soon enough, our tray of Happy Meals arrived. The little boxes adorned with smiley faces seemed almost sarcastic, like they were taunting us. However, we were too engrossed in nostalgia to even care. That's when things started to get strange.
Hey guys, did anyone else get a weird toy?
James asked, pulling out a small plastic clown figurine from his bag. It didn't look like a current Ronald McDonald toy. It seemed like a vintage one, but it was in great condition. However, it had this disturbing grin and eyes that seemed to be staring intently.
Mine's normal, just a little car.
Melissa showed us her toy. Sarah and I had one of the cars as well.
Weird,
James said as he shrugged it off, placing the plastic clown down on the table. We finished our meals and said our goodbyes, promising to do it again sometime soon. I reached home and collapsed on my bed, not giving the night a second thought. I had my first nightmare that week. I dreamt of that Ronald McDonald from the Happy Meal. In my dreams, it grew life-sized, its grin widening until it reached a physically impossible width. Then it guided me into this bizarre town with colorful buildings. It was almost cartoon-like. That was when I saw the other McDonald's mascot, Grimace, only it was a disturbing version of him, ravenous and drooling all over the sidewalk. He locked eyes with me, and before he could pounce, I woke up in a cold sweat. The image of his penetrating eyes still burned into my vision. After taking a deep breath, I quickly realized there was something under my pillow. I lifted it up, and there on top of the sheets was that Ronald toy. But I never got the Ronald. How did it get over here? Not really knowing what else to do with it, though, I walked outside and tossed it in the trash, closing the lid after. I turned to go back inside and thought I heard a faint laughter coming from somewhere. Opening the trash, I stared down at the Ronald again, somehow expecting it to move or do something. But nothing happened. I slammed the can shut and walked back inside, locking the door behind me. That morning I called Melissa. She sounded exhausted.
It's so weird,
She said before I could speak.
I kept having this nightmare about the clown.
I finished for her. We both fell silent, realizing the gravity of what this meant. I immediately went back to the kitchen, mustering the courage to open the bin again, and saw the clown was gone. I searched my entire apartment, but there was no trace of it anywhere. Melissa and I decided to meet up and try to talk about what was going on, since she said she had found one of those weird Ronald toys under her pillow as well. We went back to that same McDonald's. On the way there, I got some terrible news. James and Sarah had gone missing. Their parents had been looking for them all night, but no one knew where they were. When we arrived at the McDonald's, I noticed the cashier who had rung us up that night was working again. Paying more attention to him this time, I discerned that he was a really big guy and had a bizarre, almost bowl-cut haircut. He was also looking, or more precisely, staring at me. The realization chilled me to the bone. I nudged Melissa and subtly gestured towards the cashier. She looked up, and her eyes widened.
"Isn't that the guy?"
she whispered.
"Yeah, doesn't something about him seem off to you?"
I replied. Before she could answer, he began walking towards us, holding a tray. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as he approached the table and leaned in.
"I noticed you all didn't order any Happy Meals this time,"
he said, placing a tray of food onto our table. On it was a single Happy Meal box, its smile now seemingly more sinister than ever.
"This one's on the house." "We're good, thanks,"
Melissa stammered. The cashier's grin widened. It seemed to mimic the Ronald Toy smirk from my nightmares.
"Are you sure? It'll make you happy." "We're sure,"
I said, gathering the courage to meet his gaze. As he walked away, I could have sworn I heard him mutter something under his breath, but couldn't really tell what. We immediately left after that, and once outside, Melissa grabbed my arm.
"We have to do something. Go to the police and tell them what?"
I interrupted.
"That a fast food toy is stalking us? That we're getting served menacing Happy Meals?"
Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number, reading, "Don't you want to be happy?" My hands trembled as I showed the message to Melissa. Her face went pale. I looked back inside, and the big weird cashier guy was gone.
"That's it. I'm reporting this guy. I bet he knows what happened to James and Sarah,"
she said as she quickly fumbled for her phone to call 911. We ended up going to the police station right after, saying that we thought the cashier guy might be some stalker, and that he got Melissa's phone number and my address somehow. Still, they mostly just said they would look into it. The next couple of days, we pretty much just poured through online forums, reading about haunted objects, cursed toys, and urban legends surrounding around fast food chains. Melissa then stumbled upon an old news article from the 90s about a McDonald's cashier who had gone missing one Halloween. But what caught our attention was his picture. It was him, the same guy who had served us, the same unnerving eyes, the same sinister grin. The article mentioned that before disappearing, the man had developed a bizarre, very vocal obsession with Happy Meals after being accused of killing his two friends at a park one day. However, since their bodies could never be found, they could never arrest him for it.
"I don't like where this is going,"
Melissa said, her voice tinged with fear. We then devised a plan to confront the man. Armed with the information we'd gathered, we returned to the McDonald's the following night. He was there behind the counter, his eyes meeting mine the moment I stepped in. Discreetly, Melissa reached into her pocket and pressed on her phone to start recording.
"We know about you,
I blurted out.
about your incident in the 90s, and I think you know what happened to our friends."
His grin faltered, replaced by a snarl. He looked toward the back of the restaurant to make sure there weren't any other employees nearby. Then he leaned in and spoke in a whisper.
"You can't escape it, you know. The happiness. We'll find a way. We're not afraid of you. Whatever you've done, it ends now."
Melissa replied angrily. For the first time, he looked a little uneasy.
"How did you get her number and my address?
He didn't respond.
And why the hell did you leave this at my house?"
I pulled out the clown and slammed it on the counter. His eyes widened at the sight of the Ronald figurine, as if he was staring at a relic of untold power.
"I brought it to you because you've been chosen." "Chosen for what?"
I demanded.
"To move on to the next phase,"
he replied with conviction. The two officers we had spoken to the other day entered. Just then, Melissa turned to look at the restaurant front doors as they swung open. The two officers we had spoken to the other day entered. One of the officers discreetly nodded at Melissa, and then looked at the cashier. She nodded, handing her phone over to the officer.
"Sir, we'd like you to come to the station with us. We've got some questions about the disappearances of James and Sarah Reynolds."
The cashier glanced at the police, putting together what just happened. A twisted smile returned to his face.
Poor souls. If only you knew,
he said, glaring at Melissa and I. Suddenly, the cashier reached into his pocket. My heart jumped, expecting him to pull out a weapon, but instead, he revealed a small remote control and pressed it. The lights in the McDonald's flickered, then went out entirely. Panic swept through me as the officers jumped over the counter to chase after the cashier. In the darkness, a back door somewhere behind the counter burst open and then slammed shut. In the few moments that it took for the police to get to the kitchen area and out the back door, the cashier had disappeared into the night, leaving only an empty uniform shirt behind. Afterwards, the police took our statements and assured us they would do everything to catch the man. But deep down, I felt we had lost our only chance. The craziest thing, too, was that when the security footage was later checked, it almost appeared as though the man had vanished into thin air as he was exiting out the back of the store. Although this is up for debate among skeptics. Despite endless investigations and even making headlines again as the unsolved Happy Meal mystery, neither the cashier or our friends were ever seen again. Melissa and I kept in touch, but never returned to that McDonald's, or any other for that matter. The nightmares slowly faded, and life continued, but the haunting feeling never totally went away. Years later, I received an anonymous package in the mail. Inside it was a McDonald's Happy Meal box. My hands trembled as I opened it. It had another creepy Ronald toy inside, and contained a note that read, "Your destiny awaits." Whether this was a cruel joke from a random fan of the case, or a message from the cashier, I'll never know. But let's just say my sleep has gotten bad again. I've tried burning the toy, throwing it in a lake, but in the end, every night it turns up again, lying under my pillow. I think it might be time to just accept it, and see where my nightmares take me. Hey, it's Mr. Freaky. I hope you all enjoyed the first of my Halloween originals. Stay tuned for more of these as we approach the holiday, as well as give me your recommendations in the comments below. Have a horrific evening, everyone, and remember to stay spooky, my friends.